Hi, everybody. I hope I'm on the right channel. Hi, everybody. I hope you guys are all doing very well. It's Saturday, it's Saturday, and it's Houston. It's storming, so we've got a bad storm out there that's blowing up. So, um, so what am I going to talk about today? Well, I thought that. I thought I'd make a point, which I don't often do. That sounds bad. I don't often do a video for YouTube with the express purpose of trying to make an impact, right? I'm not a social justice warrior kind of person. And I just talk about the things I just talk about the things I'm interested in on my YouTube channel. I don't have many people in my life that want to talk about true crime. And I myself do find it interesting and fascinating. This thing with Brian Koberger is crazy. And so I'm kind of all caught up in that right now. But this was different. I think we can all agree, regardless of the moving alliances, regardless of the public's changing opinions about the parents of Sebastian Rogers, regardless, I think it's fair to say that the majority of people were disturbed at Chris Proudfoot's story of asking Sebastian, "Are you wearing your belt?" And because he was not wearing his belt, he had to give Chris his belt so that Chris could then hit him with the belt. And the majority of us felt uncomfortable that it's first of all, number one, you should not trust me on this. Hitting a kid who is on the spectrum is a dramatically different process and potential outcome than hitting a kid who's neurotypical. There's a lot of reasons for that, but part of that, hey, Jen Madison, welcome. Good to see you. But one of the biggest reasons for that is that they have a neurological habit or instinct is a better word. They have a neurological instinct that they reflect their environment. They don't act to change the environment, right? Whereas neurotypical people, we act to change the environment. We see something we don't like, we problem solve and say, okay, how am I going to manipulate this, make it go away, or change it into something that I like. People that are on the spectrum, they're different. Their natural instinct, their attempts to understand what it is that they're witnessing or what it is that they're a part of is reflection. Mirroring is a common term. They also do it verbally, lexicon. They do what we call scripting, where they will hear something in a movie or even the last couple of sentences that you just said, and then they'll repeat it over and over. They'll say it over and over and over again. I mean, I've known some of these kids that are able to do like an entire book. Their brain just knows it and they say it. When they get anxious, when stress builds up, when they find themselves in a social situation or a social environment that they cannot make sense of, that has no meaning for them, then they will very often fall back on scripting as a stimming device to help them calm themselves. Sometimes they'll rock, right? Sometimes they will play with their eyelashes, their eyes. They'll roll their tongue, kind of play with their mouth and lips and roll their tongue. there's any manner of scripting, they'll spin in circles. That's a very common self-soothing tool that they use, is to spin. You'll notice that they hold their body and carry their body a little bit differently than you or I. For example, W sitting, where they, most of us, if we sit on the floor, we'll either sit like on our heels, our knees and shins parallel to the floor, and our butt on our heels and feet, or sit crisscross applesauce, right? But very, very often kids that are on the spectrum do W sitting, where their feet are actually to the sides of their buttocks. Their bottom is on the floor, and then their feet stick out on each side of them. So if you were on top, it would look like a W. They do toe walking. They tippy toe when they walk around. All of these things are stimulating. It's providing additional feedback to the brain for proprioceptive reasons. There's a lot of reasons they could do it. But anytime stress goes up, then the self-soothing activities will occur. The mirroring or scripting, reflecting, again, that is the coping style. That's the instinctive way of trying to make sense with what they're looking at. Now, we all do it. Don't get me wrong. As neurotypical people, you're not sitting around free of, reflection and mirroring. For example, how many of you have ever, let's say that you are putting together a model or working on an engine or trying to update some software in your computer, where there's a process that's involved, or a stepwise process. If you keep trying it and it doesn't work, then eventually you'll stand back and you go, okay, first I have to do blah, blah, blah. Okay, check, I did that. Then I have to do blah, blah, blah. Check, I did that. Then I have to do blah, blah, blah. You are effectively reflecting back the directions that you have found for whatever it is that you're doing. And we call that self-coaching. It's a little bit different, but we call that self-coaching. But it's still, the neurological process is the same, in that you are interfacing with the thing that you're trying to make sense of, the thing that you have not yet mastered or understood. And you start by simple reflection, like what you see in a mirror. Now, why go through a lot of explanation for something that is so simple? Well, because it's not really that simple when it's instinctive and guiding your every behavior. What parents, neurotypical parents, what parents expect to have happen is that we will ask a child to do something. We will expect compliance in some way. And then if the child fails somehow, they either don't want to do it or they're not interested. Maybe they're not even attending. They may not have been listening to you. Then what do parents do? Oh, I got to use anger to get their attention. I got to be forceful and get their attention. So then you scream and you say, hey, I'm just going to use this as an example. Hey, Sebastian, look at me when I talk to you. And so then, as just a natural reflexive stance, Sebastian turns around and says, what? Well, you yelled at him, so he's yelling back at you, because aren't you supposed to do that? Now, me and you recognize differentials in power. We recognize, no, you don't yell at your parent, right? Without expecting some punishment. But someone on the spectrum, a child with autism, they're not thinking through it like that. They're reflecting back. They're mirroring the environment. They're just, and if they get in trouble for yelling, what? They don't know why they're in trouble. And you're going to have a hard time explaining it if you're the one who's running around screaming and throwing your hands about and acting like a crazy person. Because the child on the spectrum is going to go, well, You're acting like a crazy person. I thought that meant I should act like a crazy person. If you want me to be calm, then you need to be calm. Same thing with your dogs and cats, by the way. If you have a little yappy dog or a dog who tends to get aggressive and angry, think about reflection. Be the mirror. Show the dog, the cat, the kid in your life. Show them what you want them to do. Give that to them. They'll reflect it back to you. It is just insanity to say, get over here while I get my wooden spoon out and whip your little ass. And then expect them to go, oh, yes, yes, dear father, dear mother, let me comply as you act like a Appalachian River backwoods 1940s scary person. Okay, I know Appalachia is actually, one of my heartfelt goals to bring industry back to the Appalachian River Valley or Ohio River Valley. So we do as adults, supposedly as the people in our kids' lives that are supposed to be leading them and teaching them and guiding them to be contributing members of society, we do sometimes do really crazy, perplexing things like, you want me to take this wooden spoon out of my purse and hit you with it? And then, of course, the child's going to be a little like, no, I don't. And yet, if that child says, no, I don't want you to take the wooden spoon out and hit me, then the parent says, you smart aleck, now you're going to get the belt when you get home. All right, you get my point. So thinking as a parent to little dogs or people, thinking as a parent, try to remember you're the mirror. And what you show to that child, regardless of whether they're on the spectrum, neurotypical, ADHD, whatever, what you show to them, that will be reflected back to you. So be careful, because if your child is acting out in rage, inappropriate words, behaviors, they are reflecting you. They're learning from you, they're watching you, and they see you are the model in their head when their brain is trying to generate a solution to a novel situation. Make sure you're a good model. Make sure that you're showing the right thing. Now, this idea of a wooden spoon or belts or whatever, that obviously comes from the fact that, Christopher Proudfoot told the story about Sebastian and the belt, and that he was hit when he did not wear his belt. I would suspect, based on what I've heard about Sebastian, I would suspect that the belt is uncomfortable for him. And or maybe he just forgot it. It could have been absent-mindedness. But a lot of times kids that are on the spectrum, it could just be that they don't wear their socks or they don't wear their belt because it doesn't feel good. It feels very strange to them. There was a creator that came out when all this first happened, was Christopher Proudfoot talking about that Sebastian and the belt and everything. There was a creator that came out and sort of stood up for Christopher Proudfoot, or took a pro position towards spanking in general, perhaps. I guess that's a good way. He told a story about, his mom broke wooden spoons on him, spanked him with the belt. Look at me, I turned out fine. That kind of anecdotal type of thing. And I'm willing to say, of course, especially come from the South, that sure, there's a lot of parents that spank their kids, and it doesn't fall under the heading of abuse, right? In the Bible Belt in particular, spare the rod, spoil the child is often quoted. However, that's an improper interpretation of that particular scripture, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But yes, it's common, maybe not common now, maybe not even really that common in my generation, but certainly with my parents, my grandparents, everybody was getting hit. Everybody. Like my mama, who was the dearest, most wonderful woman I've ever known. And, probably my primary mother role archetype, right? My mama would say, you get out there and get you a switch. And you had to go cut your own switch, right? And you try to come back with like the little like wheat that was just grass. She never hit me. But anyway, yeah. So she'd make my dad and my uncle, when they were little, of course, they were both wild boys, go cut their own switch so that, then she could spank them and tell them, what they did wrong. But through the years, we learn more and more about children and abuse and the effects of abuse and compliance and all of that. And we learn there's a better way, right? If the goal is, I want a child to grow into an adult who will be a contributing member of society, then it's better to go light on the beatings and go heavy on goal attainment. You set high expectations, you provide high support structure, you got a great kid. And it's an equation that works really well. Where does it go off the rails? It goes off the rail if you take a 5-year-old and put them in control of your house. If you take your little kids and say, oh, tell me, please explain to me why you don't want to eat your green beans, my dear little child. Now you've got little kids who know nothing, controlling you, controlling their nutrition, controlling their health choices. That too will go off the rails just as quickly as being beaten upon. If we stay with the idea of parents being the mirror for the child, what do you think happens if you're a heavy drinker? Your children watch, they too will become heavy drinkers and other types of substance uses. Not because they're bad, not because there's anything wrong with the kids, but just because of the way the brain works. They're going to mirror what they encounter and what they see. So we as the adults in the world, we have choices to make. We have choices to make about what do I want to show my child? What do I want to reflect back? I'll tell you another area that rather than grabbing a spoon, a wooden spoon or a belt or a ping pong paddle, my mother-in-law used a ping pong paddle. Another place that we could really grow and do better with kids rather than striking them is to teach them self-care skills, right? That when they have a bad day, when somebody picks on them at school, when they fail a test, when their best friend tells them they hate them and they don't want to play with them anymore, when those times come, again, it's time to be the mirror. It's time to think, okay, as an adult here who's healthy and secure, well-adjusted, what are the things that I do when I experience disappointment in life? That could be a real growth moment too for everybody, because you may realize, oh, well, that's easy. I grab a bottle of wine. Yeah, just go get my little bag of drugs or weed and just calm the hell down, But your 5th grader can't do that, right? And so learning these tools and techniques for managing the emotional ups and downs that come with everyday life. Look, life is going to be shitty some days, and other days it's going to be awesome. That's why they call it life. You're going to go up and you're going to go down, and some days you're going to be dramatically bored. I call it the plane of lethal flatness. It's far better to be so depressed or so angry than being on the plane of lethal flatness. It's the worst. Now then, so when our kids suffer these moments of disappointment, anger, frustration, whatever, talking with them, coaching them through it, first you tackle the physiological activation of the moment. Usually the prescribed thing is do the opposite. So if all you want to do is lay in bed and cry and not move, that's exactly the moment you need to get up off your butt and go get on your bicycle. Come on, get up, let's go fishing. Get up, let's go to the beach and pick up shells. Hey, I need help today. I'm going to be painting the living room. Come on and help me. We'll turn on some music and I'll give you $50 when we get finished. But get out of the bed and come on, right? You do the exact opposite. If you're angry and really activated and anxious and high, kind of manic-y, that is when you teach them to breathe. You teach them how to do diaphragmatic breathing. You teach them walk in the grass with bare feet. You teach them grounding exercises like name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. There's any number of mindfulness exercises. Very, very often for traumatized children in the hospital who have suffered physical catastrophe, trauma, very often take them out into the gardens at the hospital and say, okay, I want you to find 5 different leaves, and we're going to take each one of those leaves. You're going to turn them into a human, and you're going to tell me a story about each one of those leaves based on where they live, meaning what kind of tree, what kind of environment the leaf was living in. So all of to sit here and try to teach them all is a wasted effort, because there's literally thousands of books that have been written or YouTube videos where therapists and counselors and psychologists are teaching these interventions to people for their own immediate problems, but we never, ever, ever make the leap. You learn what is calming and grounding for you. And then when your kid has a bad day, when somebody is mean to your baby at school, teach your child self-soothing skills. Teach your child to be a good parent to himself or herself. Teach them that being sad is okay in limited amounts, and then it's time to get up and go do something that's going to make you feel good. You don't have to stay in that dark, negative place. You do have the ability to take control of what's happening to you. I also teach little kids reframing. If you don't like how you feel, change what you're thinking about. It's incredibly powerful. And I'm going to tell you something. When you see a little 5-year-old whose mom and aunt have both died of drug overdoses right in front of them, and that child goes up to a lady in the waiting room whose husband has died, and the little kid leans and looks underneath and says, you feel bad? And the little lady goes, yeah, I do. And she's crying. And the little kid looks at her and says, if you don't like how you're feeling, you can change what you think about. Tears, man. I was watching this. I was just like, oh, I don't know if I can take this. It was wonderful. We call it generalization of knowledge. This little kid been in therapy with me. We had practiced these things. We'd done it with dolls and just over and over and over. And then there I was fixing to get him out of the waiting room and bring him back to the playroom. And he's there with this woman grieving the loss of her husband, telling her, change what you're thinking about. You'll feel better. And I was like, that's it right there. We can do this. We can teach people to be healthier. And it doesn't matter if they're 4 or 5 years old or if they're 40 or 50 years old. What does not teach people how to deal with the terrible ups and downs in life is striking them. It doesn't teach them. It teaches them anger. It teaches them violence. It teaches them when they don't like something, they can break it or hurt other people because they don't like what's happening to them. And none of those things help society. They don't help our bigger culture. They certainly don't render a calm, protective home. So I think that when we heard that Christopher Proudfoot was hitting Sebastian with a belt, I think a lot of us, the initial reaction was, oh, don't you know you're not supposed to hit any child if you're me. But you're not supposed to hit kids that are on the spectrum for a very specific reason, because of the mirroring problem, because of the reflection, right? It led me then to the next place, and that was, why do we hit kids? And usually the truth is we usually hit kids because we're mad, right? I mean, if people were really brutally honest with themselves, it is rare for a parent to say, okay, now I'm fully in control. I'm disappointed that you broke rule number 375, subsection B, and I will now strike you above the blue jeans upon your buttocks with a weapon. People don't do that. People try to minimize and try not to deal with whatever is happening until finally they get so irritated. They're like, damn it. Do you want me to hit you with this wooden spoon? I don't know why I turn into a 90-year-old woman when I get my wooden spoon out, but that's just what comes to mind. I guess it's old granny. All right. You hit when you're irritated. Can we be honest? Can we just deal with some honesty here? We hit kids when we're irritated with them. We hit kids when they're taking us away from what it is that we really want to be thinking about or what we really want to do. And that's when we hit. If the primary coping tool that you're using in dealing with kids in general, not just on the spectrum, but any kid, if the primary coping tool that you're using is a wooden spoon, then what happens? What becomes of you and the kid when the wooden spoon, the beatings are not working? Because eventually it'll lose its power, right? And then what do you do then? And that's the problem, right? That is when we see such a dramatic escalation in abuse. Is when, if I grab my wooden spoon and say, get your butt over here, I got my wooden spoon. And the kid goes, oh my God, she's got the wooden spoon. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I promise, Mom, I'll never do it again. I promise. I won't do it again. Promise. And then the mother says, you're damn right you won't. Remember it, because next time there will be a second chance. Right? Okay. I have no idea if that's what abusive parents do. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So, but what happens then when you use it, you grab your wooden spoon and you say, little Johnny, get over here, be quiet, you've got to quit. But little Johnny is so activated, so hurt, so angry that he doesn't care about that wooden spoon. And he grabs his own wooden spoon. And he says, you're not going to hit me with a wooden spoon because I got a bat. And I'm going to beat your ass. Well, Katie, bar the door and call 911 because it's going to be a rodeo. Now, those situations do happen because eventually kids that are getting hit on eventually get big enough to say, you're not going to hit me anymore. You're just not. I'm going to hit you right back. And I'm bigger than you. So put that stupid wooden spoon down, lady, before I hurt you. And now you got a problem in your house. And that's when the state gets involved and CPS gets called. And like I said, it's a rodeo. If the approach to dealing with these moments of activation, of great anger, great sadness, if the approach is education, teach them self-soothing behaviors, teach them how to burn up the energy of the anger and then change what they're thinking about. If we take the time to teach them those things, you don't ever get to the rodeo part. You just end up with a kid who comes home and says, Mom, I had the worst day. You wouldn't believe what happened. I'm so mad. I think I need to go for a run. Just get out there, go run. And when you get back, we'll go to your favorite restaurant tonight. Or go run. When you get back, we'll play some video games. Or go run, do what you need to do. We'll go up to the Y and go swimming for a while. Rather than screaming and yelling and thoughts of control and compliance. It doesn't have to be like that. Doesn't have to be that way. Why is it so important to have this conversation? It's important to have this conversation because it's the rodeos that get people's kids' arms broken. It's when the kid stands up and says, no more. You're not going to hit me anymore. Sometimes they do it when they're 5 years old. Sometimes they do it when they're 15. But most kids that are getting beat on, especially with an object, eventually draw the line in the sand. And then if the parent steps over that line, now you've got law enforcement involved. You've got broken hearts and broken heads and broken arms. Maybe you've got parents going to jail. Maybe you've got kids being doomed to living in the foster care system. And in Tennessee, 1 in 8 children in 2023, 1 in 8 children live in foster care. If your child lives in foster care, they are at a 73% increased chance of being assaulted. Sometimes by the foster parent, sometimes by older foster kids living in the home. Foster care is a dangerous environment. That's why you hear these stories where abuse is happening in a home, the cops respond, CPS gets involved, and then everybody walks away and leaves the child in this abusive home. And the neighbors are going, why did they leave that kid in that house? Oh my God, why didn't they remove that child? Well, because somebody made a value judgment that the child actually had a greater chance of survival in that abusive house than they would have in the available placements that were there for foster. Hard, cold realities. What we're doing with kids, it's not working. Parents are not being successful for the most part. So we need to try a different way. There's a bit of good news. In 2022, 23, there were 186 children in Texas who died of beatings by their caregiver, parents, mom, dad. 186. But the good news is, in 2023 to 2024, only 177 died from beatings from their parents. It's crazy. It's great. It's a travesty. It's a terrible testament against we, the adults, that are supposed to bring kids into the world, protect them, love them, nurture them, teach them, and guide and direct them to be contributing members of our society. After all, one day we are going to one day you're going to be as old as I am. And then you're going to be in trouble because you're going to be relying on your kids to take care of you, and you didn't treat them very nice. You got to think about that. It happens. It's a real thing. All right. I want to play this song. Get ready. You need some tissues because it is incredible. And it is basically a song about, a kid who was abused, and he's having a conversation with this preacher. And the man that wrote this and recorded this said it comes from a real place, which means he lived it.
One Sunday morning after church, the preacher was shaking hands. A little boy walked up and said, "Can I please talk to your preacher man?" He said, "My daddy left my mama and me, and it's been a couple years. And my mama's boyfriend don't like me much, especially after a couple of beers. Sometimes when he hits me, I close my eyes real tight, and I wish that place you always talked about was real with all my might. Is heaven real? 'Cause I can't wait to go. I can't wait to know how heaven feels. Is there a place where there's no more pain or dying? No more need for crying. 'Cause I can't wait. Is heaven a real place? Well, the preacher man didn't know what to say, and before the little boy turned and walked away, the preacher said, "Son, would you like to pray?" Right there, the little boy hit his knees, and he cried out, "Lord, help me, please, 'cause I don't know how much more pain I can take." And he looked up with them tears in his eyes. He said, "Preacher man, I don't want to die, but I just..."
Okay.
Stop that right there for a
now.
Second. This little kid is telling this preacher that his mom's boyfriend is putting his hands on him, and he's scared, and he's in a lot of pain, looking up at the preacher that he don't want to die. Makes me feel some type of way. Like, children are, it's our job as adults to protect all children, like all children. Yep. Right? If I don't, song gets me, and it just kept popping up today, so I just felt like doing a reaction on it. So let's finish the song.
I wanna know if there's a better place. Is heaven real?
And it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me if the person hurting Sebastian was Seth, or if it was Christopher, or if it was Katie, or the grandparents. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference. Even punishing the people that may have been hurting him simply because they didn't know any better way, right? The point of this live is we can do better going forward. If you actually believe that it's your role as a good parent to hit and beat on your child, maybe take a parenting class, maybe find a psychologist and tell them, I'm doing great, not having trouble, don't need therapy from me. But what I'd really like to learn is I would really like to learn ways to control my child, to get my child to follow the rules and do what they're supposed to do in a way that's healthy for him and for me. And that psychologist can teach you that. Trust me, a house where people are being controlled by goals and rewards for achieving those goals, that is such a healthy environment. It feels good to be there. It feels like a sanctuary away from the world, a place where you feel accepted, a place where you feel like you belong, compared to a house that uses humiliation, even ostracizing. In narcissistic homes, very often, if you have a narcissistic mother, she will manipulate the golden child or other kids to socially isolate the scapegoated child and make everyone in the family hate the scapegoated child. And the scapegoated child has no idea what they did wrong, but they spend the rest of their life trying to get the family members to love them and accept them. And it's terrible. It's a terrible role to be in. So these are not comfortable conversations to have. And I recognize fully, because I've had these people in my office yell at me before. I've had people yell at me about, oh, I'm going to hit my child because the Bible says you got to hit them to make them right. It's not working. It's just not working. Our culture on the whole is as angry and misdirected, misguided, dependent on substances greater than any time ever before in our history. It's not working. We should at least be willing to try a little bit of something new. You can still hit them, but try a little bit of something new. Try offering some goals. Try offering some rewards when your child achieves that goal. You may be surprised at just how wonderful of a child you actually do have.
'Cause I can't wait to go. I can't wait to go. I can't wait to know how heaven feels. Is there a place where there's no more pain or dying? No more need for crying. 'Cause I can't wait. 'Cause heaven real. Later on past midnight, the preacher man got a call. Little boys in a hospital doing bad, and a mama's boyfriend's running from the law.
All right. Let me give you the link to that song, that channel. Paste. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to this creator, because we did play some of his song. And, you know, listen to the song, learn the words, keep it in your mind, because we are destroying our greatest natural resource in this country, which is our children. We're destroying them with all this nonsense. We really are. I hate soapboxes, you know, I hate that. But we just found out Chad Daybell, of course, found guilty of the murders of JJ, Tylee, and Tammy. And they came back today, just a few minutes ago, death. Thank you, Idaho, right? Can we all say thank you? Thank you. So as we used to sit and weep at the thought of Tylee being so terrified and JJ being so unaware and Tammy being so mystified at the loss of her children and her husband, her children were blindly following their crazy father. Now we don't have to think about that anymore. Now you get to think about, imagine the Chadster lying on the table waiting for those needles to go in his arm. That's right, Chud. You asked for it, you got it. This is a great example of FAFO. So good deal. I am not like rejoicing, happy, jumping up and down. I am relieved for Kay and Larry and Cresha, Colby. My God, this right here for Colby, it's just more trauma. It's just more trying to cope with his mother wiped out his entire family. It's just terrible. It's really terrible. But they got him. All right. So we got to do better. Sebastian, doesn't matter who was hurting him. We've got multiple CPS calls and cases, multiple states. There's accusations against Christopher Proudfoot. There's accusations against Katie. There's accusations against Seth. I probably believe it's all of the above. I think everybody just took turns at poor old Sebastian because they just did not understand him. They didn't take the time to educate themselves so that they could be a friend to Sebastian and communicate with him in a way that he would understand. It's about one of the most tragic, terrible cases that we've had. Certainly the Daybell Vallow situation, to me, that's the worst so far. probably even probably worse than even Chris Watts. Not that JJ and Tyler are more valuable than Cece, Nico, and Bella, but the awareness, the length of the width of the crimes, horrible. It's just terrible. So psychopathic, right? No feelings, no sense of love or affection for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy. It's just terrible. It's terrible. Very sad. Okay. I hope you'll go over to the channel. I gave you the link. At least go over, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, please, please, please. And share the song. Share the song everywhere. We got to try to stop this hitting kids. It's just dumb. You're giving up. If you get so frustrated that you don't know what anything else to do than to strike a little kid, you've lost. You've proven that the kid's smarter than you are. Don't be that person. There's plenty of books out there, plenty of videos. Read, learn, get you a psychologist to teach you. Use reward and goals. That's the way to go forward and end up with a healthy, strong, contributing member of society. Not somebody like Chad Daybell. All right. Y'all have a good day. See you later. Thanks for being here. I hope you have a great Saturday night. All right. Saturday night and I ain't got nobody. I got no money, but I just got paid. How I wish I had someone.